I had this really weird experience that haunts me to this day. I had a great uncle who was around 80 years old. At the time, his wife had passed away a few months earlier. They had been together since they were in high school, so he was of course very devastated by the sudden loss. It's hard to say that my uncle withdrew from the world because he was already sort of withdrawn. He lived out in the hills in this beautiful old house he had built by himself. He was very handy and very rarely came down off the hill for any reason, at least after my aunt passed away. He spent about 5 months without even driving down into town or contacting anyone. My family was very concerned about him. My mother told me that when she went to see him, he specifically asked if I could come and stay with him for a while. I always enjoyed spending time with my uncle, so I readily agreed to the drive. His house was a long ways away. When I say he lived way out in the hills, he was really way far out there. I got to his house eventually though, and went in to see him. I was shocked to see just how much the man had aged. Not only that, but he also acted much differently now. He was extremely paranoid and refused to be left alone in the house. Literally, when he was ready to go to sleep, he would beg me to stay in the room with him. He was afraid to be alone. This was a big surprise to me because I had never known this man to be scared in his entire life. My uncle told me that ever since his wife had passed away though, he'd been seeing a man dressed in black. The man would usually wait outside the house. He would always step out from behind a tree for a moment. Then, as soon as my uncle spotted him, he would move away again. He even told me that once or twice, he'd caught the man watching him through one of his windows, but whenever the man was caught watching, he would step away. Obviously, I thought my uncle was just losing it. He was understandably distraught about losing his wife, and clearly the stress was making him see things. However, whether the problem was real or not, I was more than willing to stay with him to make him feel better. About 2 weeks after I'd arrived, my uncle was in bed. I'd come into the room with him and waited on the chair while he slept. I decided I really needed to get up and stretch my legs a bit in that moment. My uncle was a really deep sleeper anyway, so the chances of him waking up at all and noticing I was gone were pretty damn slim. I got up and went to the kitchen. I decided to work quickly on making myself something to eat. While I was just finishing cooking something though, I suddenly heard this horrendous noise coming from my uncle's room. At first, it sounded like a scream, accompanied by a loud shattering sound. Completely freaked out, I dropped my food and sprinted to my uncle's bedroom as fast as I could. I'll never get the image of what I saw that night out of my head. My uncle was still laying down in bed, as white as a sheet. His eyes were open wide, and for a moment I almost thought he was dead. That's how still he was being. Even stranger still, though, was what he was staring at. He was staring at the window facing his bed. As I observed closer, I saw it had been completely shattered. There was glass all over the floor, and it was very evident that whatever destroyed this window had done so from the outside. I checked around the outside and inside of the house. I not only found nothing, I found no trace of anything being there at all. My uncle was terrified to be alone while I was checking the premises, but there was nothing I could do about it. I had to make sure no one was there still. After a thorough check, I still found nothing. I hated to do this to him, but I had to take my uncle off that hill. He was so scared, but whatever had happened to him made it even worse. I took him to the hospital to check up, but unfortunately his mental state had deteriorated from the attack so badly that he wouldn't be allowed to go back to the house. My mom arranged for him to be put into a home, and I repaired the damage to the window. Nothing was stolen when I got back. I stayed there for a while, but I never saw the man my uncle talked about. And no further vandalism ever happened there again. I have no idea what that was about, but it seemed to be targeting my uncle for some reason. I've told quite a few people this story, and almost no one believes me. It's most definitely true though, and is the freakiest thing that has ever happened to me. I had a few years where I was sort of down on my luck. I live in an area with a lot of my relatives. One of my aunts was having a party, and I ended up staying a lot later than I should have. There was free beer though, so I kind of had to. I got a bit intoxicated, and when my cousin, who was supposed to be driving me home, wanted to leave, I declined because I wanted to stay and keep drinking. He left on his own, and I was left without a ride home. When I finally felt it was time to leave, I had an extremely long and uncomfortable walk ahead of me. While you might think that my aunt or someone else could have given me a lift home, my family was a bit tired of having to drive me places. I prepared for this really long walk down this country road. Although I had been drinking, the atmosphere outside sobered me up pretty quickly. It was really dark and very brisk. For some strange reason, it was also eerily quiet this night. I mean, usually there are all sorts of animal noises, crickets, frogs, other things that bump in the night. But this time, everything was calm and completely silent. I did become aware of some noises further out into the woods though, as if an animal were walking around back there. The noises didn't go away either, which made me start to think that this animal might be following me. Of course, I was very nervous at this point. I didn't exactly fancy being someone's midnight snack. I tried to hurry it along a little bit. I did get slightly ahead of the noises, so I figured it would be okay from then on. Right then, though, I heard the sound of several twigs breaking. This sound stopped immediately after that. I had this feeling that whatever had been following me was now directly behind me and no longer moving. I told myself to keep moving forward. Part of me, though, said I just had to turn around and see what was going on. Very slowly, I forced myself to turn around. When I saw my pursuer, I screamed. There was a large figure in the dark, standing behind me. They had to be nearly 7 feet tall, and it almost seemed like their eyes were glowing red in the darkness. They stood there, staring down at me. I took off running right away, obviously. I was so terrified that I didn't even notice if they were following me. I didn't know how far I actually ran either, or if it followed me at all. After an eternity, though, I looked back and finally saw nothing was there. It was still eerily quiet, and I was still terrified, but I walked the rest of the way home. Now, I know everyone will just tell me that I was drunk, and I imagined this or something, but never before has drinking beer caused me to hallucinate someone in the dark. I know what I saw that night, and I never went for a walk in the middle of nowhere again because of it. Sometimes you have to be really careful how you interact with some people. I had a very messed up experience several years ago when I was on a long nature hike. I was just trying to get away from it all for a bit. I do that about once a year. It's mostly on a hiking trail that doesn't go very deep into the woods. I've never really been the type to want to get totally lost in the wilderness anyway though. On this particular trip, on the second day of hiking, I set up my tent in an area I thought was ideal. It actually looked like it had been camped in before. That's actually the whole reason I chose it. I set up a fire and tried to relax a little bit after a long day of hiking. While I was in my tent though, I suddenly saw a shadow of a very large man fall upon it. The man started slapping at the door of the tent, demanding I come out immediately. Confused, I went ahead and did so. There was an enormous, scary-looking man. He had a huge, scraggly beard and scars all over his forehead. I was definitely caught by surprise. The man started screaming at me for stealing his camping area. I was extremely surprised now. I told him I was sorry. It didn't really seem to me like anybody had been camping there recently. There wasn't a tent or even a trace of anyone there, other than signs of camping from a while ago. He didn't seem to care though. He just went on and on. I was about to offer to pack up my stuff and find another spot. However, in the middle of yelling at me, this very strange man just wandered off into the woods still yelling. Obviously, I didn't sleep too well that night. I kept expecting the guy to come back, but he never appeared before me again. The following day, I went further on with my hike. I had mostly forgotten about the encounter by the time I came to this ravine. I had been to this area before. You had to cross a long rope bridge to get to the other side. I always hated that. The drop was extremely steep and right into the river as well. I was always scared the bridge would suddenly collapse while I was on it. I mean, it didn't look rickety or anything, and it always held tight every time I crossed it before, but it still wasn't an easy thing to get over, especially because I've always had a problem with heights. Anyway, I began walking slowly and carefully across the bridge. I was probably a fourth of the way across when I suddenly felt it begin swaying strongly. It was so sudden I almost lost my balance and tumbled below, but I grabbed and held on. I wasn't sure why this was happening, but then I looked behind me. The huge man from the night before was right behind me. He wasn't walking after me though. He was standing on the bridge right on the edge and using all of his strength to make it sway. Surely he was hoping I would lose my balance and fall in. I guess he figured that if I lost my balance and I got hurt, having me fall off the bridge would make it seem like an accident. Feeling sick and scared, I realized I had to do my best to hold on and slowly make my way across the bridge. I was extremely frightened and the bridge was swaying heavily. I got down to my hands and knees and crawled the rest of the way across. I had to keep looking back to see if the man was following me. He never did though. He just continued to make the bridge sway back and forth and even tried to turn it upside down in an effort to get me to fall over. I had to stop about 3/4 of the way across to throw up. I almost lost my grip because of the retching, but I managed to hang on still. It was a nightmare, and I didn't think I was going to make it. My hands were slippery and losing grip. It wasn't until my feet were safely on the other side that I finally calmed down a bit. When I was able to get up, I looked back across the bridge. The huge man was already gone. When I didn't fall, I guess he went back into the woods. I just waited on that side of the bridge till more hikers came across. I explained to them what happened, and they escorted me back across the bridge. I reported the guy to the park rangers, but I have no idea what happened afterward, if anything did at all. I had to attend a family reunion a few years ago. Unfortunately, I really didn't have the money to fly, nor the money to stay in a hotel on the way there. Because of this, my plan was to drive the entire way and sleep at rest areas in my car. It made sense to me. It would ensure that I would be able to visit my relatives on this 3-day trip. I would be sleeping in the car for at least 2 nights. I brought along some pillows and blankets so I could curl up in the back seat. The first night came and went without incident. I found a rest area and was able to just hang out in the parking lot. The second day of driving, however, had me going through the mountains. I had never made this trip before, so I wasn't sure if I would even find a rest area on the way. I drove for a very long time, and when my eyes were beginning to close by themselves, I figured I would have to pull out on the side of the road to get a little rest. It was obviously much harder to go to sleep this time, but at least it was quiet and dark. Very few cars actually came across that road. I'm not sure how long I'd been asleep before I felt something wake me up. I thought I felt my car moving a bit. Then I assumed it was probably just something I'd felt when I was sleeping. I closed my eyes, and then I felt it again. My car bobbed up and down a bit. I was afraid, peeking out from under the blankets. I caught sight of someone standing at the front of my car. He had his foot resting on the bumper, and he was pushing it down with his foot, causing my car to bob a bit. I was about to hide back under the blankets when I looked to the side window. I saw a second person there, peeking inside. I jumped up, and when I did, I saw the first guy leave the front of the car and come around to the side window where I was. He began slamming on my door and trying to open it. Fortunately, it was already locked. They started banging on my windows. I was completely freaked out at this point. I decided the best thing to do would be getting to the front seat and to drive off. Right before I started the car though, the first guy succeeded in breaking in my window. I yelled and quickly pulled away. I have no clue why those guys were antagonizing me, but I did not stop driving until I got to the reunion. And obviously, I never slept outside at night again. At a really young age, my parents began letting me stay home alone. We were pretty poor at the time, so both had to work. I was given a key to the house, and whenever I would get home from school, I would get inside, lock the door, and wait for my parents to return home from work. I was never supposed to answer the door for anyone. I was 11 when this happened. I was walking home from school, and there was already a storm coming. The clouds were black and were slowly inching their way across the sky. I knew I'd have enough time to get home before it fully began pouring down though. I did arrive, although when I got home it was already completely dark outside due to the cloud cover. It was only about 3:30 p.m. too. When the rain finally began falling, the winds were extremely heavy. The thunder and lightning were even worse than I could recall from any other time. Unlike many people, I never really liked storms, so I was pretty damn scared. About 4:30, I heard a sudden knock at the door. I was always instructed not to open the door for anyone, nor to let anyone know I was home alone. I ignored it because of this, but this was also the first time anyone had come knocking when I was alone anyway. I really didn't have experience handling this situation. When the knocking continued for a few minutes, and whoever it was didn't seem like they were giving up, I didn't know what to do. After a while, the stranger used their fingernails and opened the mail slot of the door. "Hey kid, I know you're in there. Your parents have been in a car accident due to the storm, and they sent me to come pick you up and take you to the hospital, okay?" I got up and walked to the hallway. I knew I was supposed to ignore this person, but I had it figured that something serious must have happened to my parents. I was very concerned. I stood a few feet away from the door, and I could see the man was crouching down, peeking in through the mail slot. He clearly saw me as he called out to me. "Come on, kid, both your parents are hurt real bad. Come on out so I can get you to the hospital before anything bad happens to him." In an 11-year-old's mind, you don't really know what to do with that information. I didn't respond. I just stood there stunned and wondered what I should do. I was worried about my parents, of course, but they'd also told me to never let anyone know I was home alone, nor to let anyone I didn't know into the house. "Come on, kid," the guy yelled this time, sounding angry and impatient. "If you don't come with me right now, your parents might die. You don't want your parents to die, do you?" Well, wrong move, buddy. One way to terrify me was to yell at me, so now I was terrified of the man. I ran away from the door, went up to my bedroom, and ran into the closet. I hid inside. I could still hear the man pounding on the door and screaming in through the mail slot. It lasted a while longer, but then I didn't hear anything else. I must have been hiding in the closet for nearly 2 hours, but it seemed like the man had gone away about an hour in. That was until I suddenly heard someone enter my bedroom. I nearly screamed when the doorknob turned and opened. There was my mom standing there, completely unharmed and wondering why I was hiding in the closet. I swiftly explained what happened, and that was the end of it. Although we don't know for sure it was him, a man was later arrested on several kidnappings in the area. My parents had never been hurt. This guy was just trying to get me to open the door and go with them. I was 11, and 11-year-olds can be quite gullible. Thank God we can be very scared of strangers too. What is up guys, Blue Spooky here as always. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you do subscribe, be sure to hit that bell button and turn notifications to all so you can be notified whenever I post a new video. I try to post every night, so if you don't feel like doing that, you can come back and check every night around 5:30 p.m. and there should be a video for you. If you guys have any criticism or any thoughts on the stories therein or anything like that, please be sure to leave a comment. I always make sure to read every comment. Even though I can't always respond to them, I do read each and every one and I do enjoy them, so please continue to leave your guys' comments. If you'd like to send in your own story for me to read, please be sure to check in the description below the video. It will have links to my Twitter, Gmail, and Facebook accounts. Send me a message on any of those and I'll try to read your story as soon as possible. If you do decide to send a story in, please be sure to include the tagline, what the name of the story is, what the type of the story is if it has one, and how you'd like to be credited in the description of the video the story appears in. And of course, there's a link to my friend Killer Orange Cat's channel in the description. He lets me use some of his stories in my videos, so if you could be so kind, please be sure to check him out as well, as he's also a good scary story narrator. Overall though guys, I think that's pretty much it for now, so thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.